Tucker Carlson is definitely on a mission to continue what Rush Limbaugh had begun. And Rush Limbaugh, of course, was announced dead today at the age of 70. He succumbed to lung cancer. But if you feel that maybe that's the end of disinformation, you'd be wrong, because Tucker Carlson has been promoted at Fox News. He's gonna be expanding his streaming role with Fox Nation, which is the digital platform for Fox. Now, why is this such a terrible update? Because of the fact that we're gonna get more takes like this on disastrous events in the country.
So unbeknownst to most people, the Green New Deal came to Texas. The power grid in the state became totally reliant on windmills. Then it got cold and the windmills broke, because that's what happens in the Green New Deal. You're without power. Millions are still without power tonight. Several have died. Now, the same energy policies that have wrecked Texas this week are going nationwide. They're coming to your state. Well, the Green New Deal has come, believe it or not, to the state of Texas. And we're here with the report. How's it working out so far? The windmills froze, so the power grid failed. Rather than celebrate and benefit from their state's vast natural resources, politicians took the fashionable route and became recklessly reliant on so-called alternative energy, meaning windmills. So it was all working great until the day it got cold outside. The windmills failed, like the silly fashion accessories they are, and people in Texas died. A lot more of them than died at the Capitol on January 6th, by the way, just for reference. Green energy inevitably means blackouts. And someday that may change as technology progresses. But as of right now and the current state of technology, that is true. Green energy means a less reliable power grid, period. It means failures like the ones we're seeing now in Texas. That's not a talking point. It's not a political slogan. We're not taking money from ExxonMobil to say it. Green energy is the ultimate inside game. A tiny number of people profit from it, from government subsidies and regulated prices. Everyone else gets a moral lecture about climate change.
Michael Weber is a professor at the University of Texas, Austin, and he specializes in energy. That's what his expertise is on. And he says Texas is a gas state. Gas is failing in the most spectacular fashion right now. In fact, the Texas Tribune gave us an in-depth look at just how the power is divvied up, how energy is divvied up in the state of Texas. It's estimated that the grid's total winter capacity, about 80% of it, or 67 gigawatts, could be generated by natural gas, coal, and some nuclear power. Only 7% of Electric Reliability Council of Texas's forecasted winter capacity, or 6 gigawatts, was expected to come from various wind power sources across the state. The point here is that Texas still heavily relies on fossil fuels. Yes, they have expanded wind energy with what Tucker Carlson referred to as fashion accessories. What? Like, are people making arguments that like wind turbines are sexy or something? I don't know. But it's still a small percentage of what's being used to generate electricity and power in the state of Texas. And the real problem here is something that I went into in depth yesterday, but before I repeat myself on all of that, Nando, I wanted to give you an opportunity to jump in and talk about what's really going on in the state of Texas.
Well, it's just, it's those hippie dippies in Texas that want to do alternative wind power, that this is what they get. I mean, it's not like climate change has anything to do with it. It's not like the record low temperatures are due to climate change in the first place. Yeah, I mean, it's just, listen, you gotta give Tucker credit in that he is a very clever man, and he is able to spin something like this into some sort of liberal failure, even though Texas is like long been solidly Republican, and it's not like they would do anything that is on the liberal agenda just out of pure spite. So not to mention the fact that Texas is like you said, mostly driven by oil and gas, especially gas. But yeah, it's just you gotta appreciate the hustle there, because to frame Texas as some sort of Greenpeace cop government or something is just it's hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, look, Tucker Carlson is just one of many right-wing commentators who regurgitated the same talking points that the fossil fuel industry handed over to them. I respect none of his hustle. He's a clown. But I hear what you're saying. I mean, I don't even know if this has anything to do with Tucker Carlson. His audience is gonna believe him no matter what, regardless of how nonsensical his argument is. And that's the depressing part about it. But yes, you're right. I mean, again, the majority of their energy comes from fossil fuels. But also Texas is pretty unique in just how far they've gone to deregulate utilities and specifically energy companies in their state. And so it's just a combination, a cocktail of absolute disastrous decisions here. Because number one, of course, Texas is run by politicians who do not take climate change seriously. And so they didn't think to maybe ensure that the wind turbines that they do have are equipped with, winterized equipment, basically equipment that helps to de-ice the turbines in frigid temperatures. They didn't think to do that. They're not regulated to do that. So yeah, they froze. But again, that's not really the big problem here. The big problem is also the fact that these energy companies didn't really care to have energy reserves, right? Because why would they? There's no financial incentive to do that. There's no regulation ensuring that they do that. And so this was something, honestly, I've only really seen it talked about or written about, I should say, by the Financial Times, because they wrote that the Electric Reliability Council of Texas had announced rotating outages, right? This is when things started to get really bad at 1:25 a.m. local time on Monday after the cold weather froze wellheads and interrupted supply to natural gas-fired power plants. And some wind turbines became encased in ice, curtailing electricity output. So they have less supply of energy, clearly. But there's an increased demand because people are cold. They wanna make sure they're warm. So they're turning their power, they're using their heaters, all of that. And low supply, high demand, people are gonna get slapped with insane bills. And that's part of the reason why they're doing these rolling blackouts, partially to prevent people from getting slapped with massive bills, but they don't have enough supply. Generators are paid only for the energy that they sell, not for keeping capacity in reserve for times of stress. Electricity retailers compete fiercely for customer business, unlike utility monopolies that operate in some other states. Maybe these utilities shouldn't be privatized. How about that? Anyway, they can adjust prices according to market conditions. Wholesale electricity prices for deliveries surpassed the grid's price cap of $9,000 per megawatt hour in the early hours of Monday this week, multiples above the average prices of $25 per megawatt hour on the Texas grid. So it's just been a complete disaster for a number of different awful policy decisions that lawmakers in Texas have decided to go with. And to blame it on wind turbines is just so laughable. But it also shows you, Nando, the way that smart people do politics. Because the second that this winter storm happened and they had to do the rolling blackouts, they're like, oh, the best defense is offense. So they immediately went out with their talking points and started punching people in the face with allegations against renewable energy. And there's some portion of the population who's gonna buy it.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're gonna buy it because they don't, and this is true, by the way, of almost everybody, is that they don't buy it because he's punching to the team. He's punching the team that they don't like, and we've sorted ourselves into the teams, and whatever it is to own the other team is good in our book. Liberals should do a little bit more of that, to be honest. But yeah, what you mentioned about the deregulation is just is to me the key here is that when you don't have government mandated kind of electricity supplies and reserves and things like that, it's in the interests of the for-profit companies to create just as much as they need at any given moment, and to not really plan for contingencies. It's a huge cost that they'd rather not have to deal with. unless the state mandates it, in some way. And that's to me the key aspect of all this. I mean, Texas has long been a very right-wing state, and this is what happens when you implement right-wing policies and you cut away government regulations and all that. But yeah, of course, like, the discussion immediately gets framed around this culture war issue of alternative energies or whatever, and it's just what's despairing about it is that just because he's punching, he's owning the libs, like that's all that matters. That's all that matters to them. Like it's just like, let's find one way to own the libs on this, even though like libs have nothing to do with Texas, like literally nothing. They haven't been in power in Texas in forever, but like let's just find a way to own the libs on this, and that'll be enough. And yeah, I mean, like I said, we're guilty of it as well in some cases, but we should be doing more of it.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. I really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.